Yes, I mean, Ian Waters does a really great job of teaching this merging mesh networks. You should definitely watch what he does. We could take a little time and watch what he does. I'm going to do it a little bit differently, where I'm going to merge from a network to a network to a network. So I'm actually going to string 3 networks together. There's a small video. Let me find it. Right, so following along, he got some text. He said form, and he picked a typeface. So I can, you know, I don't think we have Gil Sans. I think that's something that he has in his studio. Yeah, yeah, we don't have that. So we can just pick anything here for typeface. That's fine right there. Lato black, that's fine. All right, and then he said use a cube because cubes are efficient, and he also made the cube really small. So we could shrink the cube by, I don't know, down to 10% maybe, 0.1, a really tiny cube. And then he made the cube, he said he made the cube incandescent, so he put a material on it, which is just a bright blue. So just put a bright-ish blue color on it. I guess you could make it incandescent if you wanted to go further by actually doing an emission color, and then setting the emission color. But that would be, you know, just taking it one step further. And then he mesh networked that cube. Okay, we're going to call this our mesh number 3. We're going to do a couple versions of this, so this will be our first version of mesh number 3. And he said set it to about 15,000 points. Okay, good. And then we want the distribution type to be mesh, and we want the mesh to be our typeface, our type mesh. And then he said the scatter method should be face center. Now, his method said something else. It was like flood mesh. Okay, so I've got face center. Face center is not what I want. Face center is definitely not what I want. I want scatter. There we go. Scatter. That looks a lot like his, doesn't it? And then it was use face area. There we go. That's it. There we go. So we kind of caught up with Ian Waters. And it's distributing across. And I guess I could hide the type to just see the blue cube. And I could probably shrink the cube further like he did, maybe 0.05. So they look like points. Yeah. You know, that's incredibly neat all in itself. I really like that. It has a good feel to it. All right, so we're going to take it further. Let's see what he does.
To add merge node like that, and then we need to hook up a child node, which can either be a waiter or another merge node. So we just grab our second waiter, and then shift select our first waiter, go to the merge node and hit connect waiter. So
okay, we don't have to go through all that stuff. We don't have to do that. This is different now. So I want, and it all just depends on which direction I'm going. So I'm going to add the merge node to my plane, and the child node is going to be the first mesh network. So middle click, drag and drop that straight in there like that. And we're going to merge position, rotation, scale, and ID.
So that's connected our second waiter. And then when I change the strength, you'll see that our word form kind of.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I've got it backwards. You see how the floor is moving up into the shape of form? So I think it would work either way. So what we'll do is, what we're going to do is we're going to essentially hide one network, and then one network's going to blend and move into the position of the other. His is the word blending down to the floor.
Disintegrates and goes and inherits its positions from the first network. You can add positions and you can also subtract them, but we want crossfade here, so you can see what's going on here. So with strength set to 1, I can go down to the fall off objects down here and then right click and choose create, and you see.
Okay, so for mine, with strength set to 1, we'll add a fall off object.
That if I just scale this up and move it over our letters, I can use a fall.
There you go. Create a fall off object. Scale it up. And then as you move it through, you can see it's moving from one position to the other.
Off objects to form our points, which is in itself a very cool effect. We don't.
You guys ever see some kind of special effect where someone's body disintegrates in a film, or it coalesces into a body from like the ground or the sand, like Mr. Sandman kind of thing, and it just like Spider-Man, Sandman, and it's just like all the sand kind of comes up together and coalesces into the body. So this is kind of like that. It's definitely not like what you saw in the film, but that's kind of the idea.
We want a circular fall off object, we want a cubic one, so I'm just going to select the fall off object here, change the shape to cube, and then I'm just going to start scaling this to get what I want. So I want something that's quite thin, but I want something that's quite long, like so. So I can move this down over here. I'm going to shrink the inner zone something like 0.1, and I'm going to change the fall off ramp to something smoother. And then, as you can see, as I move this through our objects, our letter starts to form. I need to have this wider because I want the inner zone to completely encase the text so that at least the letters are forming. Just make that slightly wider still, and until I get what I'm after. So I'm just making it 1.5. Okay, so you can see that the word is forming, and then it disappears when the fall off object leaves the word. So I want it once I pass the fall off object through, I want it to the letter to stay formed, and that means well, first of all, I need to animate it passing through the object. So let's set a keyframe on frame not 1 actually. Let's set a keyframe on frame 10. And then on frame 60, let's set a keyframe at the bottom of this. So let's just make sure it doesn't matter where we go really, we can just finish something like here. Set a keyframe there. And then on the fall off object itself, we just need to change the mode from normal to add. And then when I rewind and play this, our fall off object moves through the word, and the
really
word
cool.
is formed.
I really love that. That's really cool. All right, so I've got my shape, cube. He scaled the cube to fit. He changed the inner zone. And I want the inner zone to be fully enveloping. So here's the thing. All right, so I got it inverted. So I'm going to remove the merge network on this guy and put the merge network on the other one. And then make plane, the mesh 3 plane, the child node. And that should, and I don't need this fall off object. And then I'll add a fall off object. We can see now when I change this fall off object to cube, I should have the same thing that he had. And I'll scale it. like so. And then, yeah, and you can see now when I pass through, it's doing the same effect that his was doing. And then I'll key like he did, starting at frame, I don't know, say frame 10-ish, somewhere in there. Key the translation, and then pass through, maybe key 60, and then the mode is set to add. So as it passes through, as it passes through, the text is forming. Okay, and then he's going to add a couple more effects.
So, few stragglers here, and I think that's just because I need to increase the size of my inner zone here. So if I just change that to 2, like that, and then rewind and play. Better, nearly there. Okay.
So we do have it, and he adds the spring to give a touch of wave motion to the whole thing. And with the spring, it should be at the top of the pile, and he adds a bit of dampening and stiffness variation, which is random, as he just said, and so it'll have a bit of a bounce to it as it comes together. And lastly, we can hide the plane network and rewind and hit play. And all those particles should get pulled up. Sorry, I hid the wrong thing. Attempted to hide the wrong thing. It's not the mesh network, it's the repro mesh. There we go. Hide the plane repro mesh. There we go. So that's the idea of merging from one network to another, so you could change form or change shape. So let's take a look at what I've done in the past. So I'm going to find that video. Okay, here we go. Making a pile of cubes. So I'll save this one. This is my Mash 3. And I'm going to do a second version of Mash 3. So this was Ian Waters' demonstration. So then let's do my version of it. Same thing. Okay, so I've got a cube. Let's make a mesh network of the cube. Mesh, it's supposed to be Mesh 3, doesn't matter. And then we want to have a grid of cubes. And I don't want to get too crazy with this because I know some of your systems, like computer systems, you can't handle this. So let's try maybe 10 by 10 by 10. And then 10 by 10 by 10. That should be 10 times 10 times 10. It should be 1,000 cubes. And if I look at, 1,000. So I've got 1,000 points, 1,000 cubes in this mesh network. That should be enough. If that's too much still, you can just reduce those numbers, maybe 5 by 5 by 5. Okay, and then I want to apply dynamics. And I know I haven't delved deeply into dynamics, but when we're just dropping cubes, really not too hard. We just use a collision shape of cube, box, and you could probably just add a little bit of friction and a little bit of rolling friction so they don't bounce all over the place. And then hit play. And just be sure to hit play. Make sure you've got about 500 frames to 1,000 frames. And let it play through. And let them all like settle. I don't need them to slide around so much. You see how they're like really, really sliding away? I don't want them to slide away like that. I mean, I guess it's okay. It's just not quite what I wanted. I want to show you how to change that. You can go to this, like, what kind of icon is this? It's like nodes being connected to another node. This is where you find the bullet solver. So there's that keyword bullet. So this mesh network is using the bullet solver. So here I can change how accurate the dynamic is. So I can say the collision iterations. So I actually would like to have a higher accuracy, 20. That's still kind of low, but it's better than nothing. And then I want the internal frame rate to be 120. And what I want to do is increase the friction to about 0.5. And if I rewind and hit play, they shouldn't move as far away. They should stick. Yeah, you see? They just sort of crumble right where they are. And I think that aesthetically is just a bit more interesting. But that's just me, I guess. Let it play out to about 500 frames. Till it settles. But before it gets to frame 1, before it loops, be sure to stop it. So I'm going to stop it right here. And in the dynamics node, there's something, if you scroll down here, it says initial state. Click the red plus button. That creates a new node called dynamic initial state. And we can't see that new node because the editor doesn't show it. So I'm going to unlock my UI, close the editor, go back to the mesh menu, and reopen the editor. And you'll see that the dynamics initial state is actually a node there. I don't know why it doesn't show up unless you refresh the... You got to like close the editor and reopen the editor, but it is there. And if you saved your scene, close the scene, reopen the scene, that dynamics initial state node would be there. So I want you to know that it is a node. And what it does is it tells Maya to start the dynamics right here. So instead of starting the dynamics up in the air and falling, it says start it right here. In fact, you can even disable the original dynamics. Don't delete it, but just disable it and scrub the playhead. And now we have a new model of dropped boxes at this static position, which is really neat. I mean, just as an illustration tool, this is also pretty cool. A modeling / illustration tool. Love it. So then what we're going to do is take this pile of boxes and form them into something else. So we'll get the torus for that. But the torus is really just the shape of the network, but it's not the thing that is being mashed. It's the cube that's being mashed. So we're going to take the same cube, just like Ian Waters did, and create another mesh network. And I'm going to call this in air. So it's going to go up into the air, so up above. And this one's also going to be 1,000 points because we know that this waiter had 1,000 points. So we want this new waiter to have 1,000 points. And we want it to be a distribution type of mesh. And then we want a mesh to distribute to. So I'm going to get a torus, make the torus bigger. Scratch that. Don't scale the torus. In fact, just increase the radius of the torus. And then increase the radius, section radius, to maybe 5. Don't scale the torus. Then just do some arbitrary rotation to it and move it above. Okay, just some arbitrary position as well. And what we're going to do is collect all those to take the shape of the torus. Then we'll take the distribution node and middle click, drag and drop the torus to the input mesh. If it will work. I don't know why it doesn't work. Deselect, reselect, try that. Not sure what the deal here is. I think I need a new mouse. I think my mouse is like doing automatic double clicking. There we go. So then now the torus is an input mesh. And we can see that it has all of the cubes distributed along the surface. We could use face area like we did before. And I think, or anything else really. You could use face center. You could do random face center. Although that won't really matter because we only have 8,800 faces, but we have 1,000 objects. So scatter would be a better option. Oh, UV space is an option too, which is a neat thing. It's a distribution of the objects according to the UV layout. That's another day, I guess. Scatter is the method for today with use face area. Okay. The torus, we don't really need to see it, so let's hide it, Control H, because we're just taking the cubes into the shape of the torus. Now, with the in air, I'll choose to add a merge node, the mesh, what is this called? The waiter, the network, will be my child node. Very good. The strength shows it animating into position. And then we'll use a fall off object to animate that. And we'll use add as the method. And I'll simply make this larger. So as we add and we come into position, something like that. We could make this what is this called? Fall off object, a child of the torus, so that we could then set the child to have the same position and rotation as the parent. So we could set that to 0, and we could set its scale to 1 or 10, and unhide it, of course, because well, anyway, so that just matches the position. That's all I really meant to do. What's another way we can match the position, folks? You think about this. So I want to hide the torus, but I don't want to unhide my fall off object. So I'm going to unparent it. So maybe the parenting method is not good enough. What's another way to get this to match that position without using parenting? Parent constraint, very good. Thank you for that help. So driver driven, constraint, parent constraint, option box, and this time we will not use maintain offset, hit apply. And what do I get now? Well, I get the constraint where I could blend it on and off. So I could have like a 0 connection to a 1 connection. So I could move now my fall off object, say like, I don't know, down here perhaps, and I could keyframe the blend of the merge. So I could be at frame 1, there it is. I could key this, and then be, I don't know, frame 60 perhaps, 62, that's fine, and set this to a value of 1, and then key that. And so as I and of course I need to have a keyframe or a second position. Maybe I should have a second parent. What do you think? Just like we did with the camera jumping from parent to parent, we could have another parent for the parent constraint. Or maybe we can just key it. Do you think we can key it? If we just said key this at frame 1, can we do that? I don't think so, because the X and Y Z translation rotation is already being locked up. So that's not really going to help me. It's already under control by something else. So I think rather what would be better is if there was another parent or another target somewhere. So if I had another target somewhere else, say, I don't know, down here or something, and that was driving it as well. So again, a parent constraint, same settings, don't maintain the offset, apply. Now I've got a second parent. Again, we can key that at frame 1, and then at frame 62, I'll just set this to 0 and key that. And I should have it now animated between these two positions, yeah. It should now be animated between those two positions, very good. And then I just need to increase the size of the whole, the inner zone, in order to capture that. And then I can hide the original repro mesh, the pile. So the pile starts on the ground. Get a cool camera angle and see it coalesce into the torus. and then perhaps maybe just move the first locator away a little bit. It seems to have some influence on it. It's pulling on some of those points. Like that. And this is basically what I did when I, except instead of taking the shape of a torus, I just took a random shape of all the aqua blocks. I brought them up into the air and then dropped them down into a third network, which would like tell them how to lay out flat. So then I would blend to another network, which I don't think I need to do right now. I think I did cover this particular semester blending even to yet another network where it all flies off to another plane, which is just following the same steps to blend to another network. I guess it's not terribly difficult to explain. Again, the same cube, another network. And this time it's going to be a plane. And the mesh networks are alphabetically ordered, so, and numeric and alphabetic order. So if you want to change the order, just rename them. You can also color highlight them. I don't know if that really matters to you right now, but you can do these simple colors here, which is helpful as they get more complex. So at frame 62, we want to like blend to something else, right? So if I did a grid, this time two-dimensional, so 100 times 100. Or I'm sorry, 100 times 10, rather. Right, so that should be 1,000 points. Simple math. And so then we could make a transform node for that. Move it into position. We want to take the torus to blend into this shape. So we'll take the plane, again merge. The child is going to be the mesh in air. The fall off is going to be a box, cube. And this time I'll just keyframe animate the box. So I'll keyframe the position. Maybe go to frame 110. Go to about here, keyframe that. Make sure the inner zone is fully enveloping it, capturing, there it is, capturing all of it. And now, interestingly enough, you hide the in-air repro mesh, and now we have a transition from the floor to the torus to the grid. So from the floor to the torus to the grid, and then I just change the timing of that so it's a little bit less cheesy. Go to my fall off. Just change the timing of that a bit. Maybe overlap these a little bit from one position to the next. There we go. Turn off the wireframe. Hide some of these windows. Make it pretty with the sky dome. Again, put a pure sky in there. Do we have a pure sky? Pure sky, yeah, that's it. Number 7, to see the light. And it just looks prettier. And we can hide the fall off objects. We don't need to see those. Now that we've got our network resolved. And it's processing faster, interestingly. Maybe do a little camera animation to track where it's going. And that's it. That's the merging mesh network. So you saw Ian Waters do it, you saw me do it, and you saw a little bit of collisions. You saw it taking shape from one shape to another thing. And you could string these together as many as you want. It's just I did find, I want to throw in a little warning, I did find that editing, going backwards, things tend to break. This kind of work tends to work best when you build it up and you build it forwards. If you try to go back by undoing or whatnot, it tends to break things. Questions, thoughts, concerns? So mesh number 4. So this is actually really cool. So I've got a cube already mashed, and this time I'm going to set it to mesh. Yeah, mesh, again, mesh. And I need an input mesh. Okay, so I need something. Let's use a sphere. And let's make the sphere big. Let's make it, say, a radius of 25. Now, this time, okay, yeah, same thing. Sphere is the input mesh. Come on. There we go. Sphere is the input mesh. Voxel. Voxel. So then we're going to... Yeah, voxel. Sorry, it's not scatter. It's voxel is the method. Aha. Now we've got our Minecraft-like setup. This is... Did I do this the first time around, voxel? I don't think I did. Did I?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so, no. Okay. So voxel's just going to fill the object. So we've got some options. We have shell only, fill and shell, or fill only. Let's do fill only. And then hide the sphere. And we have our Minecraft-like filled up piece here. So then we need to change the voxel size to 1.0. And then this is going to look like Minecraft. Okay? Okay, that's cool. All right, that's really cool. How many points is this now? This is going to be 58,000 points. So if you want to reduce this number of points, reduce the scale of the sphere. So instead of a radius of 25, try a radius of 10. And then take a look at the number of points. It's only 3,200 points. So if you're having a hard time with this, just reduce the size of the sphere. Or try a cube or any other shape for that matter. So we're just filling up the volume with cubes using the voxel method. All right. Now that I have voxel and I'm using cube in this demonstration, so I suppose I should change that, but I'll leave it alone. I'm going to go a little bit bigger because I can handle it. All right. Then if I use an offset node and set this to multiply, everything disappears because the scale should be set to 1. Position should be set to 1. Rotation should be set to 1. So we want 1s all the way across. So anything multiplied by 1 is itself. So by setting this to 1, we're just putting it back to its original position. Then I want to scale, say 2. And I want to position... I don't know if position is really what I want to do. but we'll do it anyway. So we'll push position out to twice its position. So 2 on position, 2 on scale. Then we're going to get a fall off node. Right click, choose add fall off, double click it, and now we've got a spherical fall off. And as I move my spherical fall off, it kind of explodes and pushes as that fall off touches that surface. You can see how they push away from the surface. I guess this is too slow for me, so I'm going to reduce this to 15. There, that's faster. That's nice. You can see how it just kind of bubbles up, pushing that position. Then I want to randomize it. I want random positions. And I want to use the same fall off object. So I'm going to select this fall off object here, select this random node, right click here and choose connect. Connect. And that connects the same fall off object. So I don't have 2 fall off objects. I'm using the same fall off object and I've just connected it. So then as they bubble outward, they also take random positions. I can also give them random rotations. It's sort of like tearing up as I touch this. It sort of tears up. So it's really an interesting effect. And then the random positions, so we could just really push those out, tearing it as we touch it. And that's the idea for number 4. Anything more is just, embellishing it and playing with it and trying to get a little bit more out of it. We could also change the scale, although I can't reduce the scale, I can only increase the scale. So if I wanted to play with this in increasing scale, I could do that, but by first counter scaling down smaller. So I could try like 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, so that as this fall off touches it, they tear away and shrink, which I think is kind of neat. Like fragments getting torn up. Again, make it pretty by putting a sky dome on it with the same stuff. Pure sky. Number 7. Maybe even turn the wireframe on for didactic purposes, and then perhaps turn on some other fancy things if your video card can handle it. You could turn on things like ambient occlusion and anti-aliasing, and just makes it look pretty as you go. Also makes demonstrations more interesting. I really don't, yeah, I need a new mouse. It's double clicking automatically. I really don't know where I would use this. I just think it's wild, like abstract and like kind of sci-fi-ish type thing. This might be a cool magic effect in one of your stories, where something kind of gets ripped apart and then puts back together again, or like this gets to the center and then it just grows and it just tears it all apart. Or maybe it starts torn apart and then it scales down and you see it all come together. Can kind of explode out like that and then come back together. It's just wild. I hope you like it. It's a fun one. Okay, that's really Mash number 4. Anything more is just playing around and having fun. I'm not even sure I went that far or did that well the last time I did this. So what did I do? I think I inverted it. I think I inverted it. Here I'm like pushing things back into positions, taking the shape of the box. That's kind of a neat effect right there too. It'd be worth watching this video again and seeing how I got those. And that's a neat thing about building these mesh networks. I seem to get a slightly different result, a very different result each time I attempt to teach the same lesson. Again, I hate really following exact steps until, of course, I find something I really like. Then I want to duplicate that. So then I want to follow my exact steps. So recording, and this is a pro tip for you too, that as you're experimenting with anything in 3D, you record yourself doing it and then go back and watch and see the things that you did and learn from it. I'm finding the recording process being very beneficial for not just for the students, but for me and my future self. I'm able to go back and see what I did. Anyway, that was pretty cool, and I'm not sure how much further I take it or what I do with it. Okay, that's closer to what I just did. Tearing it. Yep, that's cool. And then I guess that's it. And then I get into the dynamics, which I gave you a preview of. So that's what's next. Looking at all the minutia of dynamics. Okay, that's enough. I think that's enough for today. Let me check. Okay, here we go. Another box. Let's make it pretty right off the bat because, I like that stuff. Yeah, good. Okay, that makes it more fun. It'd be really fun with a ground plane and a shadow, but whatever. Then this is going to be dropping boxes. Yeah, dropping boxes. Okay, so we could drop the boxes in a number of different ways, right? Or a number of different shapes. We could take the shape of a grid. We could do a voxel. We could do, I think voxel's too slow actually, so we'll avoid voxel. We could do it as, number 5. We could do that as something that takes the shape of a mesh. I think we'll just go with grid. Okay, we'll just keep it straight. So 10 by 5 by 10, 10 by 5. So sorry, 5 by 10. Just a few amount. So 500, yeah. And we know how to drop them on the ground. So that's dynamics, box. Actually, automatic will work just fine, but box, and we hit play and we drop them down to the ground. And we know that they slide around, and we know that they slide around a lot, so we'll add a little bit of friction, a little bit of rolling friction. But that's the individual boxes friction. But then we have the world friction right here, the bullet solver. We saw that already. Change the collision iterations to 20 or maybe even 100 just to make it really accurate depending on your CPU or your computing power. And then change friction here to something like 0.5 so they don't slide around too much. Rewind, hit play, and see the result. Rewind. Oh, frame 1. Rewind, hit play. Ooh, those are a little too sticky. Maybe that's too sticky. I don't like that. Let's do less friction, less rolling friction. Let's try that again. They're just too sticky. That's maybe a little less sticky. Okay, that'll do. I'll let it play out to about 500 and stop. Now, I want to say this. So let's see, where am I? I want to get ahead of myself, so let's see what's in my list. The cereal bowl. ID node, various shapes. The Cheerios. Okay, so I don't want to do different shapes right now. I just want to stick with boxes, okay? Because in my future lesson, I deal with the different shapes if we were dropping many different kinds of things, like mixing two types of cereal, like mixing Cheerios with Kix or something, and you wanted to mix those together, and then how do you do that? Okay, some Lucky Charms in there. Yeah, but today is just boxes. So I'm not going to go through like a manual and tell you all the settings of dynamics right now, because that would be boring. I don't want to be a talky manual. I hate that. If you want to see more point-by-point instruction of different parameters, I would recommend going through the 20-some video series from Ian Waters, same channel, same place, same guy. And he goes through a whole series on dynamics explaining it. I'm just going to focus on the few things that I want us to do in our class with dynamics. So I'm going to leave a lot of these things alone and teach you this thing, which I think is pretty cool. I want to drop more boxes onto the boxes. So I want to build up my pile. So for those of you who are having trouble with computing, and everybody does at some point have computational challenges, depending on how complex your scene is. You're going to hit that wall at some point where your computer just isn't strong enough. So we need to find other solutions for making a bigger pile. Okay, so what do we do? I will first go to my dynamics and do what I did before. I will set the initial state and disable dynamics, and that will preserve this shape of the pile. Then I'm going to get my cube, make another network, and I'm going to put this up in the air, and this is also going to be a grid. This is also going to be 10, 10, 10 by 5 by 10, 10 by 5 by 10, and I'm going to drop that one down here on top of it. The difference is that in this dynamic situation, again, this is box, a little bit of friction. The difference here is that the collision object, if we go to the bullet solver, will be the previous repro mesh. So it's going to be the mesh 5 repro mesh. So we're going to middle click, drag and drop that in here. And then I'm going to double click that thing. And when you add a mesh dynamic to a mesh, you get this new mesh rollout in the shape node. And in here, I'm going to set the collision shape to be hull. So it's going to actually find the literal shape of the object. Perhaps I should change it to mesh, actually. No, I think hull should do it. Let's take a look. Yeah, so it looks at the wait. No, that seems to be an approximation. Oh yeah, see, look. That's an approximation. Hull's an approximation. Okay, so hull's not the right choice. Mesh is the right choice. The literal point position. So if I play that, it should hit, yep, and find the literal point position and stack one on top of the other. And this is a great way of well, hey, you know what? Let me show you another way of doing this. It just hit me. This is two networks dropping onto each other. There's another way. Here. Let me delete this one. And yeah, and then get back to the original one. Yeah. Watch this. So do you guys know about this? That when you duplicate something in Maya, it does not preserve any of the nodes creating the shape of that mesh. So if you duplicate this mesh, it severs the connection to anything else. So watch this. So if I duplicate it, you see that is now a static mesh when you duplicate the repro mesh. So if I turn dynamics back on, rewind, hit play, will it rewind? No mesh. Okay, apparently Let me just rewind, hit play. Nope, apparently I broke what I was doing. Okay, let me reset this. Delete this. Delete this. Get the cube back. Okay, there's my cube. Create the mesh network. Set the dynamics on, or sorry, set the distribution to grid. So this is going to be hard to see side by side because because it broke, but you'll have to rewind the video to see what I just did versus what I'm going to do right now. All right, then dynamics, same stuff, box, same stuff. Come here, same internal frame rate and some friction. Okay, rewind, hit play. Falls to the ground. Breaks up a little bit. Let's break it up a little bit more. Just like last time. Let it break up. There it goes. Nice. Let it play out a little bit. Good. Go, 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 go. Keep going. Almost settled down. Got a couple spinning cubes. There it goes. Oh, okay, okay. Apparently I need more than 500 frames. Let's go to 1000. Okay, good enough. Stop. Now, instead of using the initial state to freeze it, we're going to use a duplicate. Control D, then rewind. Let's see if it does it. Rewind and hit play. You see? So we're going to use the duplicate. So the duplicate stays down here, and we're going to drop the same network on top of it. And so then this thing being outside the network will be part of the collision. So we're going to go like this. Watch, this is fun. We're going to drop it in here. We're going to add that. We're going to go to mesh. We're going to make this mesh, collision shape mesh. Rewind, hit play. It's going to see it now and add on top of that pile. You see, because my computer couldn't handle more than 500 points, so I just kept duplicating the pile and dropping more down onto the pile. That's how I was able to build up my Aquablock pile, because I was hitting like 29 million points in the scene, and that was just too much. 29 million polygons, that is. And so you can see how that distributed nicely. Actually, let's just tweak the dynamics a bit there and make them a little bit stickier and see if they just kind of hang around, not spread out so much. And we can even go to the world friction and increase that a little bit more so they don't, so they don't, well, we could actually increase dampening, which is just a way of saying like making them slow down, like not go as far. Okay, good enough. And then I could repeat that. I could rinse and repeat that. Just let it play through maybe a little more. Okay, stop. Good enough. Now, the difference here is that unlike what I was doing earlier, where I was trying to connect network to network, merging networks, this cannot be merged because this is not dynamic, because I am effectively breaking the, not breaking, but I'm creating a new mesh when I duplicate it. So again, I'm going to take the same repro mesh, Control D, duplicate it, which makes it kind of leaves it behind. And I'm building up the pile, and I can drop it again. And then what you do is you simply go to your bullet solver like so, and you add the new repro mesh to the list of meshes that we're colliding with, so we can actually stack more meshes, and we just keep building it up. Which is pretty wild. Okay, Yeah, in fact, we can change it up a little bit here by adding rotation randomly. We could just add like maybe 20 degrees of rotation, and that will help them disperse a little more dynamically. They won't stack up as much. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. That just feels a little more random. Okay, let it play out. Do the same thing if you want to. Duplicate it. Add that to the collision. Rewind. Hit play again. Do it again. Building them up. Kind of neat, right? So this is just a neat way to get more out of it without exhausting your system. Because as far as Maya is concerned, that is one object, that is one object, that is one object. And it doesn't really matter how many polygons it has. We could easily hit 1 million polygons in Maya and it'll work just fine. In fact, 1 million polygons is just dependent on your video card. So that's number 5, number 5A, piling up boxes onto boxes, increasing by duplicating the repro node. Increasing by duplicating the repro node. It's 5 and 5A, but I'll just make this 5A. Okay? What do you think? Interesting? Boring? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications. Go to my Patreon page and donate it. If you'd like to see more, if you'd like to see more videos like this, please go to. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you. A little bit of motion blur, a little bit of hardware fog. Where's hardware fog? There it is. A little bit of fog, a little bit of color in my fog. Whatever. A little bit of distance in the fog. Good little touch there. And a shadow, of course. We need shadows. We always need shadows. And we need a light that casts shadows. Where is that? A directional light pointing down. And something to catch the shadows. We need a ground. And we need that ground to be big. 1000. And we need that ground to be at 20. No, sorry, negative 20. Sorry, negative 20. Should catch the shadows. Actually, that's too big. Come to think of it, shadows tend to break down when you get the plane when the plane is too big. It doesn't know how to draw the shadow. And that looks okay. Rewind, hit play. And that's aesthetically pleasing. All right. Hopefully, in showing you this sandbox and toy box of just how to imagine things and put things together that you might find a use for it someday in your own motion graphics, animation effects, or whatever it is that you're doing, or abstract fine arts, whatever that might be. All right, I'm done for that.